Imagine this moment. You're in your mom's kitchen the night before Christmas, covered in flour and wrapped in an apron, while 24 people are enjoying themselves in the next room. Your mom enters, glances at the cold stove, and gives you that look. Just 25 guests. What's taking so long to get started? That became my reality on the 23rd of December, 2024. I didn't push back.
I didn't break down.
I didn't mention the multi-million-dollar business she's completely unaware of. I simply grinned, pulled off that apron, and purchased a ticket to Miami with no return date, abandoning a kitchen that would stay cold and a holiday meal that was never going to happen. My name is Lily Septon, I'm 37, and this is the story of how I stopped being the person my family took for granted. If this resonates with you, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from. A decade and a half back, during my very first adult Christmas in 2009, I was 22, holding a communications diploma with zero career opportunities on the horizon. The financial crash had just devastated everything, and I was back in my teenage bedroom in Denver, firing off applications that seemed to vanish into nowhere. That December night, my parents' home was filled with the scent of evergreen and spice. Mom had transformed every surface with decorations, candles, and her collection of ceramic angels. We were expecting 15 relatives for the holiday dinner. Extended family, cousins, plus some of Dad's colleagues. "Lily, dinner is your responsibility," Mom stated while she fussed with flowers in the other room. It wasn't a question, it was a declaration. I glanced up from my computer where I'd been working on another job application. The entire meal for 15 guests? Sarah needs to focus on her exams. We can't have any interruptions. My younger sister was 18, in her first semester at the University of Colorado. She was stretched out on the sofa with her phone, clearly not studying anything. "I need to finish these applications," I mentioned gently. "There's this marketing role at job applications aren't important right now." Mom's tone had that sharp quality that signaled the discussion was finished. This is about family. Family always takes priority. That moment showed me I was being handled in a completely different way. Sarah received passes. I received chores. The following 48 hours kept me trapped in that kitchen. I cooked a 12-pound turkey, created homemade mashed potatoes, assembled green bean casserole, made cranberry sauce, baked fresh rolls, and finished 2 pies. I arranged everything, cleaned the silver, and designed the table display. By the time relatives showed up on Christmas Eve, I was still working in the kitchen with an apron covered in grease. Dad was in the front room with his drink, presenting Sarah to his colleague, Harold Thompson. "Meet my youngest daughter, Sarah. She's pursuing marketing at CU, destined to run the family company eventually." Harold greeted Sarah enthusiastically. "Following your dad's path. That's impressive." I moved past them with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Dad noticed me briefly, then returned his attention to Harold without acknowledgement. That was another warning sign. Sarah was positioned as the heir. I was background noise. Who prepared these? Harold's wife, Grace, selected a mushroom appetizer. "They're delicious." "Oh, that's just Lily," Mom responded with a dismissive gesture. "She's got plenty of time for kitchen work. Still hunting for employment." Grace offered me a kind glance, but I was already heading back to the kitchen. This same scenario played out at every celebration moving forward. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, my parents' milestone dinners, birthdays. I was perpetually in the kitchen or arranging things or washing up after. Sarah was consistently at the table, entertaining company, being presented. In 2012, I launched my own event coordination company. I named it Stellar Events. I had talent for managing logistics, handling suppliers, building experiences. Ironically, I developed these abilities in my parents' kitchen, but when I brought it up to Mom, she hardly glanced away from her reading. Event coordination, like children's parties? Corporate functions, actually. Product releases, galas, business conferences. "How nice, sweetheart. Could you grab the dry cleaning later?" She never inquired about it after that. Dad didn't either. Sarah certainly didn't. I eventually stopped mentioning it altogether. For 12 years, I grew stellar events without fanfare. My first significant client came in 2014, a technology startup that invested $8,000 for their launch celebration. By 2018, I employed 5 people and operated from an office in central Denver. By 2022, I was coordinating events for major corporations. But during family visits, I still dressed casually in jeans and simple tops. I arrived in my older Honda rather than my newer Audi. I never discussed the 23 people I managed or the $4.2 million we earned in 2024. Why the secrecy? Because nobody ever asked, and I was exhausted from volunteering information that would just be brushed aside. This past Thanksgiving in November 2024 was especially degrading. I just finalized an agreement with a prominent hotel chain valued at $600,000. I was drained but thrilled, riding the wave of professional victory. Then I stepped into my parents' home, and Mom handed me an apron. The turkey requires attention every half hour. I created a timeline. I managed 23 employees. I handled negotiations with executives. I'd been featured in 3 professional magazines, and my mother was giving me a turkey basting schedule. I accepted the apron. I tended to the turkey. I served the meal to 18 guests while Sarah discussed her demanding position as marketing director at Dad's firm, a job she'd been given, not earned. Sarah's performing remarkably, Dad announced with pride. Revenues climbed 12% this year. I could have shared that my company's revenue jumped 31%. But why bother? They'd minimize it somehow. They always had. Following the meal, while I was scrubbing dishes up to my elbows, I reached a decision. This would mark my final holiday playing servant. I hadn't figured out how I'd end this pattern. I simply knew I was done. 15 years of being invisible was more than enough. I wiped my hands dry, removed the apron, and returned to my apartment, the place my family had never seen because they'd never bothered to ask. 14 days later, on the 22nd of December, my phone alerted me to a message that would transform everything. An email from Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings. December 22nd, 2024, 9:47 in the morning. I was sitting in my executive office at Stellar Events, observing snowfall beyond the expansive windows. The Denver skyline sparkled in the winter light, and my workspace was buried under supplier agreements, floor plans, and cold coffee. Marcus Rivera, my CFO and trusted confidant, tapped on the glass door. He was 51, with silver hair, and possessed the unshakable composure of someone who'd weathered every storm. He'd guided me since 2015, back when Stellar was just myself and a computer. "This demands your attention," he said, passing his tablet to me. I examined the screen. A message from Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings, a hospitality and property empire valued at $3.8 billion. Subject line: Partnership Discussion, Exclusive Event Management 2025. I read it multiple times to verify I wasn't dreaming. Meridian Holdings intended to establish an exclusive agreement with Stellar Events. Every corporate function, client gathering, product introduction, and investor gala throughout the coming year. They'd examined our work, contacted our references, and completed their investigation. The proposed agreement value: $2.1 million. Is this legitimate? My voice remained calmer than I felt. Marcus confirmed. I contacted their attorneys to verify. It's legitimate, with one condition. There's always a condition. Victoria Caldwell requires an in-person meeting before any signatures. She refuses to partner with anyone she hasn't met face-to-face. Marcus hesitated. The appointment is set for December 24th, 11 a.m. at their Miami headquarters. December 24th, Christmas Eve. Can we move it? I asked. Victoria departs for Switzerland on the 26th. She won't return until mid-January. Marcus moved closer. Lily, if we don't finalize this by December 24th, they're selecting their backup option. Lux Affairs has been pursuing them for months. Lux Affairs, my primary rival. They've been attempting to steal my clients throughout the year. The stakes became crystal clear. This exceeded a simple contract. This represented validation. Meridian Holdings was the type of client that created opportunities. Their support would generate connections to their associates, their investors, their complete network. It would enable expansion into the Florida territory. It would transform Stellar Events from a regional operation into a nationwide brand. And losing this to Lux Affairs would send a message through the industry. Clients would question why Meridian rejected us. Our trajectory would reverse. The standing I'd constructed over 12 years could begin crumbling. There's another detail Marcus mentioned. He displayed another message on the tablet. Victoria referenced your Forbes profile. I scrolled further. There was a sentence that took my breath away. I was intrigued by your inclusion in Forbes's 30 Under 40 Event Entrepreneurs feature. Your commitment to sustainable event practices matches Meridian's principles. I'm eager to meet the innovator behind Stellar Events. The Forbes piece had published in October. I'd spent 2 hours being interviewed, photographed in my workspace, extensively quoted about industry innovation. The article labeled me a subtle powerhouse transforming corporate gatherings. I'd never share it with my family. What purpose would it serve? Mom would identify flaws. Dad would measure my earnings against his. Sarah would dismiss it. But Victoria Caldwell had discovered it. Victoria Caldwell was intrigued. Arrange my flight, I instructed. Marcus was already working.
Confirmed.
You depart tomorrow evening, December 23rd. 8:45 p.m. landing Miami, 1:30 a.m. reservation at the Fontainebleau. Appointment at 11 precisely. I acknowledged, experiencing that recognizable combination of anticipation and nervousness preceding every major negotiation. But this occasion, something deeper stirred underneath. My phone vibrated. A message from Mom.
Contact me. Urgent.
I focused on those 3 words. From experience, urgent from my mother signaled one of 2 scenarios. Medical emergency, or she required something from me. Since I'd heard nothing about any health issues, the second option appeared probable. I should have disregarded it. I should have concentrated on the most significant opportunity of my professional life. But 15 years of programming doesn't vanish instantly. The daughter within me, the one still seeking validation, still believing that perhaps this occasion would differ, that daughter answered the phone. I pressed call. Mom responded immediately. At last, she said, I've been attempting to contact you since this morning. It was 10:15 a.m. She'd sent a single text. What's happening? I asked, maintaining an even tone. Holiday arrangements have shifted. Sarah's inviting her friends this year. 25 guests altogether. 25 guests. A number that would excite me professionally. A number that frightened me personally. That's substantial, I remarked. Precisely why I need you here early tomorrow. Food preparation, decorating, everything. Sarah's overwhelmed with her job. And there it was. I tightened my grip on the phone. Through the glass partition of my workspace, I noticed Marcus observing me with worry. Mom, that's impossible. I have business travel. Business travel on Christmas? It's critical. I'm flying to Miami tomorrow evening.
She actually laughed.
Miami for what purpose? Some minor event you're coordinating? Some minor event? $2.1 million. The largest agreement of my professional life. It's a crucial client appointment. Lily, honestly, we both understand your freelance activities can be postponed. This is family. There it was once more.
Family.
The word she deployed whenever she wanted compliance. I cannot cancel this trip. Cannot or will not. My teeth
Clenched.
both options. Silence filled the line. I heard her sharp breath. The warning sign before the guilt manipulation I anticipated. Do you realize the effort I've invested making this Christmas meaningful? Sarah has been experiencing tremendous work stress. She deserves this celebration. Plus, her friends are influential individuals, associates, prospective clients for your father's enterprise. This transcends a simple dinner gathering. This is business development. Business development for Sarah, for Dad's company. Never for me. Mom, I comprehend, but you're being unreasonable. Her voice turned icy. You've always been. Sarah contributes constantly to this family, and you cannot prepare a single meal. I shut my eyes. 15 years of identical exchanges. 15 years of being labeled unreasonable for establishing limits. Unreasonable for maintaining a life. Unreasonable for existing beyond their limited perspective. My response is no. What did you say? I said no. I won't be present tomorrow. I won't be preparing dinner for 25 guests. I have an appointment that's non-negotiable. Mom's voice descended to a hiss. What appointment could conceivably supersede your family? An agreement exceeding $2 million. The line fell silent momentarily. Just briefly. I wondered if perhaps she'd absorb this. Perhaps she'd finally comprehend. Then she laughed once more. Dismissive.
Harsh.
$2 million. Lily, seriously, where do these delusions originate? You coordinate minor corporate gatherings. You're not some major business executive. Something fractured within me. Not shattered, fractured. A divide that had been developing. For 15 years finally opened. You understand nothing about my work. I understand sufficiently. I understand you're 37, single, without legitimate career prospects. I understand you've squandered years on this pastime while your sister constructed an actual future. And I understand that when family requires you, you're consistently absent. Each statement struck like a blow. Deliberate, accurate, intended to injure. Marcus rose from his workspace, observing me through the glass. He'd witnessed enough of these conversations throughout the years to recognize the dynamic.
I'm
Traveling to Miami, I stated softly. You can manage the dinner independently. If you abandon this family, don't expect to return. I should have felt crushed. Instead, I experienced something surprising. Liberation.
Goodbye, Mom.
I disconnected. For an extended moment, I simply sat motionless, phone in hand, observing the Denver skyline. My pulse was accelerated, but my thoughts were remarkably peaceful. Marcus materialized in my entrance. Are you all right? She demanded I cancel Miami to prepare dinner for 25 guests on Christmas Eve. He shook his head deliberately. And when you declined, she instructed me not to expect returning. Marcus approached and occupied the chair facing my workspace. He'd been alongside me since the beginning, when Stellar was merely ambition and calculations. He'd observed me construct something genuine while my family dismissed it as recreational. Lily, I've known you for 9 years. I've observed you handle million-dollar negotiations. I've observed you navigate emergencies that would devastate most executives. You represent one of the most competent leaders I've encountered. He stopped briefly. But regarding your family, you transform into someone different, someone diminished. I averted my gaze. His assessment was accurate. This represents the defining moment, he continued. You can continue minimizing yourself to satisfy their expectations, or you can select your own direction, but both aren't possible. My phone vibrated. A message from Sarah. Mom's devastated.
Appreciate that.
You genuinely couldn't prioritize family for one day? Incredibly self-centered. I responded, I have professional obligations. Her reply arrived immediately. Professional? What professional? You organize children's celebrations. Stop deluding yourself. I could have responded. I could have clarified. I could have justified myself. Instead, I erased the message thread. Schedule a flight, I instructed Marcus. I'm traveling to Miami. He acknowledged, already departing. Then he stopped. Lily, you're making the correct decision. For whatever value it holds. It held considerable value. That evening, I returned to my residence, the 2-bedroom loft in Lodo costing $3,000 monthly with exposed brick and mountain vistas.
The
Residence my family had never witnessed because they'd never inquired. I assembled a carry-on. Professional attire for the appointment, casual clothing for travel, my computer, agreements, presentation resources, and one additional item, the October Forbes issue featuring my photograph on page 47. I couldn't explain why I included it. Perhaps as evidence, perhaps as protection, perhaps simply to remind myself that I wasn't irrational, that I had constructed something legitimate. At 8:45 p.m. on December 23rd, My aircraft departed from Denver International Airport, ascending through snow clouds toward Miami. Beneath me, my family was presumably gathered in the front room, enraged by my absence. Let them be enraged. I had an agreement to finalize. The journey from Denver to Miami requires approximately 4 hours. I dedicated most of it examining the Meridian Agreement, creating annotations throughout, preparing for every conceivable question Victoria Caldwell might present. But around midnight, somewhere above Texas, I retrieved the Forbes magazine. The cover displayed a technology CEO I didn't recognize. But on page 47, there I appeared, a full-page photograph of me positioned in my workspace, arms folded, the Denver skyline beyond me. Lily Septon, the subtle powerhouse behind stellar events. I reviewed the introduction for the 20th occasion. In a field dominated by prominent personalities and ostentatious self-advertising, Lily Septon has constructed a $4 million event enterprise through rigorous focus on precision and an almost supernatural capacity to predict client requirements. I don't subscribe to exhibitionism, Septon explains from her executive office in central Denver, believe in delivering results. The article outlined our expansion path, our client loyalty rate of 93%, our commitment to eco-friendly event solutions. It featured testimonials from 3 CEOs who described me as essential and unparalleled in the field. And my family remained completely oblivious to its existence. I'd thought about sharing it with them for roughly 5 minutes. Then I pictured Mom's critique, probably commenting on how exhausted I appeared in the photograph, or how I should have applied more cosmetics, or how Sarah's acquaintance had also appeared in a publication once. And it wasn't particularly noteworthy, so I kept it private. I returned the magazine to my bag as the aircraft started descending. Miami's lights extended beneath like dispersed jewels, and I experienced that recognizable pre-meeting energy surge. My phone alerted me as we approached the gate. A fresh email from Victoria Caldwell transmitted at 11:47 p.m. Subject: RE Agreement Details MH2024122-3 Final Execution. Dear Ms. Septon, confirming our appointment tomorrow at 11 a.m. Please provide 2 identification forms for authentication.
Our
attorneys will have the completed agreement prepared for execution. I've included our standard confidentiality agreement and initial provisions. Should you have inquiries, my assistant is available at the contact information provided. I anticipate meeting the innovator behind stellar events. Sincerely, Victoria Caldwell, CEO, Meridian Holdings. I preserved the email, then captured a screenshot and saved that as well. Evidence, documentation. The practices of someone who discovered that promises hold no value without verification. The Fontainebleau exceeded all expectations.
art
Deco sophistication, waterfront panoramas, a reception area that exuded wealth. I registered at 2 a.m., sank into a luxurious bed, and slept for 6 hours. Upon waking December 24th, I discovered 11 fresh text messages. 4 from Mom, 3 from Sarah, 2 from Dad, 2 from unidentified numbers, presumably relatives I preferred avoiding. I ignored all of them. Instead, I cleaned up, wore my finest charcoal suit, and examined my preparation materials one final time. At 10:30 a.m., I hired transportation to Meridian Holdings headquarters, a glass structure in Brickell that mirrored the December sunlight like a lighthouse. The front desk verified my identification and issued me a visitor pass. Ms. Caldwell awaits you. 40th level. The elevator journey felt interminable. My pulse pounded in my chest. This represented everything. The appointment that could alter my trajectory. But as the elevator ascended, my phone vibrated once more. This occasion, a call from Sarah. I rejected it. Another vibration, a voice message. Against my instincts, I played it. Lily, it's Sarah. Mom is completely losing it. None of the food services will arrive on Christmas Eve. Predictable, naturally. Dad's leveraging connections, but nobody can assist. Victoria Caldwell is expected at our gathering tonight, and we have nothing to present. This is your responsibility if you had simply... I halted the voice message. Replayed a single sentence. Victoria Caldwell is expected at our gathering tonight. I stared at my device as the elevator signaled arrival. Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings, the woman I was moments from meeting, was attending my parents' residence for Christmas dinner. How could this be happening? The elevator doors separated onto a marble entrance. A woman in a navy outfit approached with a courteous expression. Miss Septon, Ms. Caldwell is prepared for you, this direction. I accompanied her through a passage decorated with accolades and images. My thoughts were racing. Victoria Caldwell had connections to my parents, or minimally, she'd been invited to their gathering, indicating she knew Sarah or Dad. Someone had established the connection, probably through professional networks. Denver wasn't particularly large in specific industries.
Did
Victoria understand I was Richard Septon's daughter? Did she realize that the family she was visiting tonight was identical to the family I'd just departed from? The assistant accessed a door to a corner meeting space. Expansive windows provided a sweeping view of Biscayne Bay. An extended table commanded the area. Legal paperwork distributed across its surface. And at the table's head stood Victoria Caldwell. She appeared in her early 50s, silver-haired with the penetrating gaze of someone who'd constructed an empire. From scratch. She wore a cream jacket and pearl accessories. Her greeting was solid. Miss Septon, it's wonderful to finally connect with you. The privilege is mine, Miss Caldwell. She indicated a seat. Shall we proceed? I have transportation to Denver this afternoon. Denver? My stomach contracted. I sat down, accessed my materials, and prepared to execute the most significant agreement of my professional life, while attempting not to contemplate what would transpire when Victoria Caldwell appeared at my parents' residence tonight. Before I reveal what transpired next, I want to stop and pose a question. Have you ever been disregarded by your own family? Have they ever minimized your achievements, disregarded your accomplishments, made you feel non-existent? If affirmative, type 1 in the comments. If you've ever advocated for yourself and established limits, type 2. And please, if you want to discover what transpired when Victoria Caldwell entered my parents' residence, press that like button and subscribe. Now, continuing the story. The agreement execution required 45 minutes. Victoria Caldwell was meticulous. She examined every provision, posed specific inquiries about our bandwidth, our supplier connections, our backup procedures. I addressed each one with the assurance of someone who'd invested 12 years preparing for this opportunity. At 11:52 a.m., we both executed agreement number MH202412223. A photographer documented the occasion. Victoria and me clasping hands, the Miami skyline sparkling behind us. Her assistant authenticated the paperwork and handed me my copy in a leather portfolio stamped with the Meridian Holdings emblem. Welcome to the Meridian Collective, Victoria announced, displaying genuine warmth. I sense this will develop into an outstanding partnership. I completely concur. We shared additional courtesies, and then her assistant materialized with a gentle reminder regarding her departure. I'm observing Christmas Eve with some professional contacts in Denver, Victoria referenced as she collected her belongings. The Septons, are you familiar with them? Richard operates a construction materials enterprise. His daughter Sarah is remarkably talented. My throat constricted. I'm aware of them. Richard represents a prospective investor for a development we're advancing. His wife extended an invitation to their Christmas gathering. She chuckled softly. Typically, I'd decline, but I'm intrigued by their operation, and I'm informed the cuisine is extraordinary. The cuisine? The cuisine I was expected to have prepared. I succeeded in maintaining my expression impassive. I hope you have an enjoyable experience. Victoria stopped at the entrance, examining me with those penetrating eyes. You know, there's something recognizable about you, Miss Septon. The surname, perhaps. Any connection to the Denver Septons? This represented the pivotal moment. I could have disclosed everything. I could have clarified that Richard and Margaret were my parents, that Sarah was my sister, that I'd invested 15 years being their unpaid caterer while constructing the company she'd just committed $2.1 million to. But I refrained. It's a widespread surname. I responded instead. Victoria acknowledged, appearing content, and departed. I remained in the vacant meeting space for an extended period after her departure, the executed agreement substantial in my grasp. She remained oblivious. She possessed no awareness that the extraordinary cuisine at the Septon Christmas gathering was intended to have been prepared by me, the woman she'd just executed a significant agreement with. She didn't comprehend that the family she was preparing to visit had invested years dismissing my work as recreational, my profession as insignificant. And tonight, when she materialized in my parents' residence and discovered no meal prepared, no caterer engaged, no miraculous presentation materializing from nowhere, what would transpire then? A shadowy portion of me desired to witness it, desired to observe my mother panic, my father fabricate explanations, my sister's meticulously constructed facade disintegrate. But a greater portion of me experienced something unexpected. Weariness. I was exhausted from the theatrics, exhausted from being drawn into their sphere, exhausted from measuring my value by their responses. I possessed what I came for. The agreement was executed. My company's trajectory was protected. Whatever transpired in Denver tonight was no longer my concern. I traveled back that afternoon, arriving in Denver at 6:47 p.m., precisely when the Septon Christmas gathering was scheduled to commence. I hired transportation from the airport to my residence, requested Thai cuisine, and powered off my device. For the first occasion in 15 years, I observed Christmas Eve independently, and it was tranquil. I didn't yet know what was transpiring at my parents' residence. I wouldn't discover until the following morning, but I can disclose now because I reconstructed it subsequently from testimonies by Grace Thompson and 2 additional attendees who were present. At 5:30 p.m., Margaret Septon entered her kitchen anticipating discovering the customary platters of appetizers, a roasting turkey, containers simmering on every element. Instead, she discovered nothing. Inactive appliances, bare surfaces, no lily. Richard. Her voice resonated through the residence. Richard. My father materialized, straightening his neckwear. What's the matter? Where's the cuisine? Where's Lily? I believed you confirmed she was managing it.
She was.
She was expected here hours previously.
Sarah
descended the staircase, attired in a crimson cocktail outfit. What's occurring? Why are you shouting? Your sister abandoned us. There's no meal. The subsequent hour was pandemonium. Telephone calls to every catering service in Denver, all reserved or shuttered for the celebration. A frantic expedition to the supermarket only to discover the prepared cuisine section depleted. My father leveraged connections with 3 restaurants, all of whom courteously declined. By 6 p.m., when attendees commenced arriving, the Septon dining surface contained this. 2. Supermarket purchased rotisserie chickens, 3 packages of pre-mixed greens, a cheese arrangement from Costco, and bread rolls still in their commercial wrapping. Grace Thompson, the woman who'd praised my mushroom appetizers 15 years previously, stood in the front room surveying the situation. Margaret, is everything satisfactory? You appear agitated. Everything's satisfactory. My mother's expression was strained. We experienced a minor catering complication, final moment modifications. 25 attendees congregated awkwardly. The residence was magnificent, decorated to excellence, but the cuisine communicated a contrasting narrative. This wasn't the sophisticated gathering my mother had guaranteed. This was a catastrophe barely disguised by Christmas illumination. At 7:15 p.m., Victoria Caldwell materialized. She entered the front room with the assurance of someone habituated to commanding presence. Her pearl accessories captured the illumination as she clasped hands with Richard, praised Margaret's decorations, exchanged pleasantries with Sarah. Thank you tremendously for hosting me, Victoria announced warmly. I've received remarkable testimonials about your Christmas gatherings. Margaret's expression intensified. Affirmative. Well, this year differs somewhat. We experienced some unanticipated difficulties. Victoria glanced toward the dining area where the rotisserie chicken rested in their unfortunate magnificence. Her expression remained courteously impassive, but I envision she was silently reconsidering her assessment of the Septon family's capability. My father redirected the discussion toward commerce. My mother dispensed wine generously. My sister engaged the room, attempting to distract from the evident.
And
Then Grace Thompson articulated the words that would unravel everything. She was navigating through her device, LinkedIn presumably, or perhaps Instagram, when she halted abruptly. "Oh my goodness," Grace announced sufficiently loud for the nearby group to perceive. "Richard, Margaret, observe this." She displayed her device showing a LinkedIn posting that had been published mere hours previously. An image of Victoria Caldwell clasping hands with someone. A description that stated, "Delighted to announce our partnership with Stellar Events." And the exceptional Lily Septon. Anticipating and remarkable 2025 #Meridian Holdings #Event Coordination #Forbes Under 40. Grace glanced at my parents, bewilderment apparent on her expression. "Wait, Lily Septon? Isn't that your daughter?" The room quieted. Not entirely. Background conversation persisted, Christmas melodies playing softly, the sound of glasses. But in the circle surrounding Grace Thompson, silence descended like a barrier. My mother stared at the device screen, her complexion draining of pigmentation. My father leaned forward, examining closely. "What is this? Some form of error?" "That's Lily," Grace stated, magnifying the image. "You're Lily," clasping hands with Victoria Caldwell in what appears a remarkably sophisticated office. Victoria Caldwell herself advanced, examining the posting. Her expression transformed. Recognition, then astonishment, then something I can only characterize as entertained satisfaction.
Lily Septon, Victoria articulati deliberately.
"Your daughter is Lily Septon, the founder of Stellar Events." Margaret's mouth opened, sealed, opened again. "Affirmative. Lily is our daughter, but I don't comprehend. What is Stellar Events?"
Victoria laughed.
An authentic, warm sound that penetrated the strain. "Margaret, Stellar Events is among the most accomplished event coordination companies in the Rocky Mountain Territory. I just executed a $2.1 million agreement with them this morning. $2.1 million. The figure suspended in the atmosphere like an explosive. Richard went pale. $2 million? That's exceeding our company's annual earnings. Your daughter has constructed something exceptional," Victoria continued, seemingly unaware of the devastation she was producing. "I reviewed her profile in Forbes this past October. Completely inspiring. Her commitment to sustainable event practices is years beyond the industry."
Forbes.
Sarah's voice fractured.
Lily was in Forbes.
Grace was already investigating on her device. "Oh, affirmative, here it is. October edition. Lily Septon, the subtle powerhouse behind Stellar Events. There's a complete article." She rotated the screen so everyone could observe an image of me in my executive office, arms crossed, gazing directly at the camera. Professional, assured, accomplished, everything my family had persuaded themselves I wasn't. Additional attendees drifted over, attracted by the disturbance. Soon a congregation had assembled, transferring devices back and forth, reciting excerpts aloud. It states she employs 23 individuals. Her company generated over $4 million in revenue this year. This quotation is remarkable. I believe in delivering results, not broadcasting achievements. My mother stood immobilized in the center of the turmoil, her meticulously constructed Christmas disintegrating. Surrounding her. "Why didn't she inform us?" Margaret whispered, more to herself than anyone. "Perhaps," Victoria stated gently, "you didn't inquire." The silence that succeeded was devastating. Grace Thompson, the identical woman who'd been attending Septon Christmas gatherings for 15 years, spoke next. "You know, Margaret, I always wondered about Lily. She was perpetually in the kitchen, perpetually working, and you scarcely referenced her. Whenever I inquired about her, you redirected the discussion." Additional attendees acknowledged, murmuring concurrence. "She appeared remarkably capable," Grace continued. "Remember those mushroom appetizers she created years previously? Finest I ever experienced." I should have recognized she'd accomplished something with that ability. Richard's professional partner, Harold Thompson, advanced. Richard, I possessed no awareness your daughter operated a $4 million company. Why on earth didn't you inform me? We could have conducted commerce together. My father possessed no response. Sarah, meanwhile, had transitioned from pale to crimson. She clutched her wine glass like a support, her flawless hostess facade crumbling. She never communicated anything, Sarah muttered. She never informed us. She simply allowed us to believe she was. Allowed you to believe what? Victoria inquired, one eyebrow elevated. That she was unsuccessful, insignificant, that her work didn't possess value. Sarah's mouth sealed shut. Victoria Caldwell surveyed the room with a composed evaluation of a CEO who had just resolved a puzzle. I encountered Lily this morning. She was professional, prepared, and among the most remarkable young executives I've encountered.
We
conversed for nearly an hour before executing.
She stopped.
She never referenced she was connected to you. Another impact. Margaret's hand trembled as she positioned down her wine glass. She didn't inform you that we're her family. I inquired if she was connected to the Denver Septons. She stated it was a widespread surname. The implication landed forcefully. Lily hadn't acknowledged them, hadn't desired to be associated with them, had maintained her family's connection concealed, not from embarrassment about herself, but perhaps from something else. Entirely. Oh my goodness, Grace breathed, realization materializing. That's why she's not present tonight. That's why there's no meal. She was in Miami executing this agreement. While you anticipated her to prepare cuisine for 25 individuals, Harold added, his tone coolly disapproving. Richard's expression had transitioned from pale to purple. Now, wait just a moment. This is a family situation.
Is it? Victoria inquired.
Because from my perspective, it appears you've been handling a remarkably accomplished businesswoman. Like domestic assistants. And when she finally possessed an opportunity that mattered, an agreement with my company, no less, you anticipated her to prioritize dinner preparations over her profession. The silence was absolute. Somewhere in the background, Silent Night performed on the audio system. Ironic. Victoria rotated to my parents with a pleasant expression that didn't quite contact her eyes. I believe I comprehend now why Lily didn't reference the connection. Please convey my regards when you communicate with her. And do thank her for me. If she hadn't advanced from this gathering, we might never have connected today. She positioned down her untouched wine glass. Now, if you'll pardon me, I have transportation to Switzerland in the morning. Margaret, Richard, thank you for the invitation. It was enlightening. She departed without glancing back. The entrance door sealed behind her, and the room erupted. Attendees congregated in clusters murmuring about Forbes features and million-dollar agreements, and the daughter the Septons never referenced. My mother collapsed into a seat, her Christmas celebration in shambles.
My
father withdrew to his private office, closing the door forcefully. Sarah escaped upstairs, presumably to weep or fume or both. And in my residence across town, I reclined on my sofa with pad thai and Netflix, blissfully oblivious of the upheaval transpiring in my parents' front room. I wouldn't discover the complete narrative until December 26th, when Grace Thompson contacted me directly. Lily, she stated, I owe you an apology. I've known your family for 15 years, and I never once inquired what you actually pursued professionally. That was inappropriate of me. It's fine, Grace. You're not the person who should be apologizing. Perhaps not. But I want you to understand what Victoria expressed at the celebration about you being among the most remarkable executives she'd encountered. Everyone in that room perceived it. Everyone comprehends now.
She stopped.
Your parents have considerable explaining to accomplish, and I don't believe the community is going to allow them to forget this anytime soon. A small, petty portion of me experienced satisfaction. A greater portion simply felt weary. Thank you for informing me, Grace.
Of course.
And Lily, congratulations on the agreement. You've clearly invested tremendous effort. You deserve every achievement. Nobody in my family had ever articulated those words to me. It required a near stranger to express them first. Christmas evening in Miami was temperate and tranquil. I reclined on the terrace of my hotel accommodation at the Fontainebleau, observing the moon paint silver streaks across the Atlantic. I'd requested room service, steak, roasted vegetables, a glass of red wine. The agreement portfolio rested on the surface beside me, its substance somehow comforting. My device was powered off.
It had been off since I arrived.
15 missed communications, 32 text messages, 6 voice messages, all from family members I had no inclination to communicate with. But now with the agreement executed and my trajectory protected, I felt prepared. Not prepared to pardon, not prepared to reconcile, simply prepared to be transparent. I powered on my device and observed the notifications overwhelming. Mom, 6:47 p.m. Contact me immediately. Mom, 7:23 p.m. Lily, this is urgent. Victoria Caldwell understands about you. Mom, 8:15 p.m.
How?
Could you embarrass us like this before everyone? Mom, 9:02 p.m.
Please contact.
We must converse. Sarah, 7:45 p.m. Are you serious right now? Sarah, 8:30 p.m. You allowed us to appear foolish before 25 individuals. Sarah, 10:17 p.m. Mom is experiencing a breakdown. Are you satisfied? Dad, 9:45 p.m. Lily, we must discuss what transpired. This isn't how family should function. I reviewed each message without sentiment. The manipulation was remarkably transparent. Now, the guilt tactics, the blame shifting, the complete absence of responsibility. Not one message congratulated me on the agreement. Not one message recognized that I had constructed something worthy of celebration. Not one message apologized for years of dismissal. My device rang. Marcus. Hello, I responded. Merry Christmas, Lily. How are you managing? Superior to anticipated. I consumed a sip of wine. The agreement is executed. Victoria was remarkable. I learned she emailed me following the appointment. Said you were even more impressive personally than on paper. He stopped. I also learned about what transpired in Denver. Information circulates rapidly. Victoria's assistant transmitted a message to our team. Apparently, the Septon Christmas gathering was quite the exhibition. I laughed. An authentic laugh. Perhaps the first in days. I can only envision. Lily, listen. You made the correct decision. You selected your profession, your company, your trajectory. You don't owe them anything. I understand. And for the first occasion, I actually believed it. After we disconnected, I accessed my computer and commenced drafting an email. Not a tirade, not an indictment, simply a transparent, professional declaration, the type I would transmit to a challenging client. 2. Richard Septon, Margaret Septon, Sarah Septon. Subject: regarding Christmas and moving forward. I typed deliberately, selecting each word with precision. I executed a contract with Meridian Holdings today for $2.1 million. This is why I was not present at Christmas dinner. For 15 years, I have prepared cuisine and cleaned for every family gathering while my profession was dismissed as a pastime. When I informed Mom I had a crucial appointment, she laughed. When I established a limit, I was labeled selfish. I am not selfish for prioritizing my work. I am not ungrateful for maintaining standards. I am not a failure because my achievement doesn't conform to your definition. I will not apologize for selecting myself. I am receptive to reconstructing our relationship, but only under specific conditions. I will no longer be handled as the family caterer. I will be respected as an equivalent member of this family. My profession will be recognized, not dismissed. If these conditions are unacceptable, I comprehend. But I will not return to the previous arrangement. I will contact when I am prepared to converse.
Lily.
I reviewed it 3 occasions, revised 1 sentence, then transmitted. For an extended moment, I simply sat there observing the waves. Nobody responded that evening. I didn't anticipate them to. They required time to process, to recognize that the daughter they disregarded had surpassed their expectations entirely. Marcus had been accurate. This was a pivotal moment, but not exclusively professionally. Personally, I completed my wine as the moon ascended, higher over Miami Beach. Tomorrow, I would travel home. I would return to my office as the CEO who had just secured the most significant agreement in Stellar Events history. I would construct upon this achievement, expand into new territories, employ more personnel, and my family would need to determine, did they want a relationship with Lily Septon, CEO and founder, or did they only want the Lily who remained small, remained silent, remained in the kitchen? I already knew the response I required. The question was whether they were capable of providing it. I want to stop here momentarily. If this narrative is resonating with you, if you've ever experienced being overlooked, undervalued, or taken for granted by the individuals who should cherish you most, please take a moment to press that subscribe button and activate notifications. And inform me in the comments, do you believe I should pardon my family, or should I maintain the boundaries I've established? Now, let me disclose what transpired next. The consequences commenced on December 26th and expanded outward like a stone deposited in motionless water. Victoria Caldwell's LinkedIn posting had been shared 2,347 occasions by the time I verified that morning. The comment section was populated with congratulations, industry connections contacting, prospective clients expressing interest. 3 hours after Victoria posted, Entrepreneur magazine transmitted an email requesting an interview about the event industry's emerging leaders. My inbox populated with partnership inquiries, 6 total, from companies I'd been attempting to connect with for years. The Meridian Agreement didn't simply secure our trajectory. It announced us to the world. But in Denver, the ripples appeared remarkably different. Grace Thompson posted on Facebook that afternoon. She didn't identify names, but everyone in their social circle comprehended precisely who she was referencing. This Christmas, I discovered a significant lesson. Never underestimate the individuals in your own family. Sometimes the most accomplished person in the space is the one nobody notices. The posting received 287 approvals and 43 comments. Several individuals tagged my parents indirectly, posing pointed inquiries about family dynamics and supporting our children's ambitions. Margaret's device commenced ringing. Women from her charity committee, her reading club, her gardening society, all contacting with thinly concealed curiosity about the Forbes situation. I learned your daughter is quite the businesswoman, one stated. Why didn't you ever reference she was remarkably successful? Inquired another. My mother had invested years cultivating an image, devoted spouse, supportive mother, pillar of the community. That image now possessed fractures. My father confronted his own reckoning. Harold Thompson, Grace's spouse and Richard's longtime business associate, contacted on December 27th. Richard, I've been contemplating that expansion project we discussed. I'd like to incorporate an event coordination partner for the launch celebration. Certainly, my father stated, likely sensing an opportunity. Who did you have in consideration? Lily's company. Stellar Events. I observed her Forbes profile. Remarkably impressive. Silence. I was anticipating you could facilitate an introduction. Harold continued. I'll contact her directly, certainly, but I believed family connections might assist. My father, who had never once introduced me to a business contact, who had invested 15 years treating my profession as invisible, was now being requested to facilitate an introduction. I'll determine what I can accomplish, he stated. But Harold didn't wait. He located my business email and transmitted a formal inquiry that afternoon. I responded within 2 hours with a proposal. Richard Septon wasn't the gatekeeper
Anymore.
Sarah's situation was more intricate and more satisfying if I'm being transparent. She had invested months cultivating a relationship with Meridian Holdings, anticipating positioning Dad's company as a supplier for their Denver developments. She'd attended networking functions, transmitted strategic emails, positioned herself as the family's business representative.
None of it mattered now.
On December 28th, Sarah contacted Victoria Caldwell's office requesting a follow-up appointment about potential partnership opportunities. Victoria's assistant responded with a courteous but firm message. Ms. Caldwell's schedule is completely committed through Q1. For future inquiries, Please direct your correspondence to our standard supplier application procedure. Translation: You're not a priority. Sarah had invested years riding the wave of parental favoritism, presuming that her position as the accomplished daughter was protected. Now, in the span of 72 hours, that identity had been demolished. I didn't experience satisfaction at her distress, but I'd be fabricating if I stated I felt sympathetic. As for me, the professional momentum was undeniable. By December 30th, I had confirmed 3 fresh client appointments for January, received 2 employment offers from competing firms, both of which I declined, been contacted by a literary agent who believed my narrative of entrepreneurial perseverance could create a compelling memoir, projected a 35% revenue increase for 2025 based exclusively on the Meridian Agreement. Marcus summarized it perfectly during our video conference that morning. Lily, you've been progressing toward this moment for 12 years. Every late evening, every challenging client, every sacrifice, it led here. You deserve this. I believed him finally. But the most surprising development originated from an unexpected source. On December 29th, a letter materialized at my residence, not an email, an actual handwritten letter transmitted via overnight delivery. The return address was my parents' house. The handwriting was my father's. I almost didn't access it. What could he conceivably express that would matter? But curiosity prevailed. Dear Lily, I've invested the past 4 days attempting to comprehend how I overlooked what was directly before me. You constructed a company, a legitimate company with employees and clients and revenue that exceeds my own. And I didn't know because I never inquired. I convinced myself I was an adequate father. I convinced myself I supported both my daughters. But the reality is, I observed what I anticipated observing. I anticipated Sarah to succeed, so I searched for her achievements. I anticipated you to struggle, so that's all I observed. I was incorrect. Deeply, terribly incorrect. I don't anticipate forgiveness. I haven't earned it. But I want you to understand that I perceive you now. I perceive what you've accomplished. And I am proud, belatedly, inadequately, but genuinely proud of the woman you've become. If you're willing, I would appreciate the opportunity to discover about stellar events, to comprehend your work, to know my daughter. Whatever you determine, I will respect it. Your father, Richard. I reviewed the letter 3 occasions. Then I positioned it on my kitchen surface and prepared coffee.
I wasn't prepared to respond. Not yet.
A letter didn't erase 15 years. Words didn't reverse actions. But it was minimally a beginning. New Year's Eve, 2024, December 31st. I stood at my residence window, observing fireworks explode over central Denver. The city sparkled with celebration. The final minutes of a year that had transformed everything. My device rested on the counter, silent for once. I'd established new boundaries there as well. Muting group conversations, declining communications I wasn't prepared for, responding on my own timeline rather than theirs. The letter from my father still rested where I'd positioned it, adjacent to my coffee maker. I'd reviewed it a dozen occasions in the past 2 days. Each occasion, I experienced something different: anger, sadness, hope, skepticism. Finally, at 11:47 p.m., I retrieved my device and contacted him. He responded on the first signal. Lily. Hello, Dad. A lengthy pause. I could perceive my mother in the background inquiring who was contacting. He didn't respond to her. Thank you for contacting, he stated finally. I didn't anticipate. I wasn't certain you would. I almost didn't. I maintained my voice steady, professional. But I've been contemplating what transpires next. So have I, Dad. I'm willing to attempt to reconstruct something, but not the previous arrangement. I comprehend. I mean it. No more being the family caterer. No more dismissing my work. No more treating me like I'm invisible while Sarah receives the spotlight. I inhaled. If I attend family functions, I attend as a guest and equal, not as personnel. That's reasonable. More than reasonable. And I require you to actually inquire about my life. Not simply presume you. Comprehend. Inquire about my company, my clients, my objectives. Be interested. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice was rougher. I should have been accomplishing that all along. Affirmative, you should have. The silence extended between us, populated with 15 years of things left unspoken. But for the first occasion, it didn't feel hostile, simply exhausted. Your mother, Dad stated carefully, is struggling with this. She's not prepared to admit she was incorrect. Not yet. I understand. I'd received no letter from Margaret, no voicemail, simply a single brittle text. Happy New Year. Hope you're well. Performative courtesy, masking resentment. Provide her time, Dad stated. I've provided her 15 years. He possessed no response to that. I'll attend dinner next week, I stated finally. Sunday, but I'm attending as a guest. Someone else can prepare cuisine. I'll order from that Italian establishment you used to appreciate. A small gesture, but a beginning. After we disconnected, I stood at the window and observed the clock advance toward midnight. In a few minutes, it would be 2025, a fresh year, a fresh chapter.
Victoria.
Caldwell's agreement was executed. Harold Thompson's proposal was in my inbox. Entrepreneur magazine desired an interview. My company was positioned for its most significant year yet. And my family, the individuals who had overlooked me for so long, finally perceived me. Not because I'd compelled them to. Not because I'd screamed or fought or demanded, but because I'd departed. Because I'd selected myself. Because I'd allowed achievement to speak louder than any argument ever could. There's a quotation I appreciate. I don't remember who expressed
it.
The finest revenge is massive achievement, but I don't conceptualize it as revenge anymore. Revenge implies you're still focused on the individuals who injured you, still measuring your value by their standards, still attempting to prove something to them. What I accomplished wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. The fireworks reached their crescendo at midnight. My device vibrated with a message from Marcus. Happy New Year, boss. 2025 is going to be remarkable. I typed back, you're correct. It already is. Then I accessed a fresh document on my computer and commenced planning. Not the next client function, not the next agreement negotiation. My boundaries documented clearly, professionally, the way I would outline any business agreement. I will attend family gatherings as a guest, not a servant. I will not accept disrespect disguised as humor. I will not apologize for prioritizing my profession. I will be treated as an equal, or I will not participate. I will respond to genuine attempts at connection and ignore manipulation. My time and energy are valuable. I will invest them accordingly. Simple regulations, transparent expectations, the type of boundaries I should have established 15 years ago. But here's what I've discovered. It's never too late. You're never too old, too advanced, too established to transform the pattern. The moment you determine you deserve superior is the moment everything shifts. My parents are not perfect. They may never completely comprehend what they did incorrectly or how much it cost me. Sarah may never apologize, but that's not my concern anymore.
My
concern is constructing the life I desire, the profession I've earned, the relationships I select. And that's precisely what I'm going to accomplish. So that's my narrative. A 15-year journey from being the family servant to executing a $2 million agreement while my family scrambled without me. If you've ever experienced being overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted, I want you to understand that your achievement is waiting. It doesn't require their approval. It doesn't require their acknowledgement. It only requires you to invest in yourself. Thank you for observing. Thank you for remaining with me through this narrative. If you've ever been overlooked by the individuals who should cherish you most, I want you to understand you deserve respect. You deserve to be perceived. Please subscribe to this channel and examine the description for more narratives about establishing boundaries and discovering your value. And leave a comment informing me, have you ever had to select yourself over family expectations? Until next occasion.